cut off and berated, and it was all captured on camera. And the woman that was driving said the man that did all this was angry because she was driving a Tesla. As Fox 13's Alejandro Guzman explains, that woman was just trying to get to a doctor's appointment.
As reported before, the Elon Musk derangement syndrome is getting completely out of hand in this country. On this channel previously, we talked about a bunch of different Teslas being vandalized. We talked about Teslas being set on fire in various dealerships across the country. And in two separate instances, we actually had shots fired at a Tesla dealership. And I need to make something 100% clear for everybody out there in the audience. This, of course, is resulting in serious criminal charges for those who participate in this, because this is politically motivated extremism that is being encouraged writ large by huge portions of the left. We've seen clips time and time again of people downplaying this, of people trying to compare this to a Bud Light boycott. One of the things that people are doing right now is showing clips of Kid Rock shooting Bud Light beer cans that he bought himself on his own property, and saying that that is somehow equivalent or just as severe, if not more severe, than what we're seeing happening to all these different various Tesla owners. And unfortunately, this fever pitch is going to get to the level where one of these drivers or one of the people that are working at these dealerships, or maybe multiple, are going to end up getting killed. And I just want to document that this is happening, that this is being encouraged, that this is being celebrated, and the real world results that are actually happening to average everyday people who bought this vehicle, many of them because they're left-wing environmentalists. And the Seattle story is a perfect example of that. Now, we're going to get into this, we're going to break this down, but before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
This encounter has left this mother pretty shaken up. She's just grateful that things didn't escalate physically. At the same time, though, she's afraid to drive her car anywhere, as we're seeing a growing number of incidents targeting Tesla owners, not just here locally, but nationwide.
So look, obviously this is the terror that the left wing wants to inflict on people who own Teslas. This is the result that they intend, because they want to drive down the stock of Tesla at all costs. And let me be clear about this. If you don't want to buy Tesla, if you don't want to associate with the brand, that is perfectly fine. That's on you. You have freedom of association. You are not obligated to buy an electric car. And if you buy an electric car, you're not obligated to buy a Tesla. But what we're seeing here is not a regular, ordinary boycott. What we're seeing here is escalating acts of violence, intimidation tactics, absolutely nasty nonsense that there are other clips of that I won't be showing you throughout the course of this video. And this needs to stop. But unfortunately, it's being encouraged. We have a Daily Show host and the audience that are celebrating the attacks on Teslas.
Jim, they're taking to the streets or the parking lots.
Tonight, the FBI and ATF now investigating multiple cases of possible arson targeting Teslas and Cybertrucks.
This dramatic video shows multiple cars in flames. Police say the attacker used Molotov cocktails. It's the latest in more than a dozen instances of arson and vandalism targeting Tesla.
The same suspect shot more Teslas with a gun. Tesla Cybertrucks were set on fire in Kansas City, and earlier this month, shots fired at a Tesla dealership in Oregon. Cybertrucks on fire in Seattle.
Wow, you guys like petty acts of domestic terrorism, huh?
You have creators like Kyle Kalinske who have essentially turned into Elon deranged weirdos that are not only encouraging this stuff on his YouTube channel, but on Twitter. Every time there's an attack on Tesla, you get a meme like this, which of course encourages the violence against these people. He's signaling the people in his audience that it is acceptable, it is amusing to do so. And of course, we have the false equivalencies comparing this to a boycott of the NFL or a boycott of Bud Light, none of which, by the way, involved violence against NFL players or attacking any kind of bars or liquor stores that sold Bud Light. In reality, what we're seeing with Tesla is not a boycott. What we're seeing is targeting them for political reasons, for violence, which many people describe as a form of terrorism. It's absolutely shameful, but again, it is being encouraged writ large by the left wing. Very few people are calling this out. Of course, I saw Anna Kasparian call this out, which I appreciate. Again, you need to have people to try to lower the temperature in this country. But all of this Elon Musk hysteria is absolutely absurd, especially when you're starting to see the courts end up ruling against Doge and against his actions time and time again, because of course the courts are going to use this opportunity to grab themselves some more power, and in this case that's exactly what appears to be happening. So our system of checks and balances is working, but apparently USAID is so important to these people that they're encouraging people in their audience to go attack these different various dealerships and of course these owners. And again, I will remind you that a lot of times we're seeing this in left-wing areas, the same left-wing areas that never prosecuted the Black Lives Matter rioters, that never prosecuted Antifa. So there is a very real chance that the criminals that were allowed to get away with it, in some instances they were quite literally paid by governments like Philadelphia and New York, are acting out again, and we shouldn't be surprised that these people are still out there and still offending, because there was no consequences for them doing so before in proportion to their actions during the Black Lives Matter riots.
I was thankfully by myself.
Lee was on the way to a doctor's appointment in Linwood Wednesday morning when she says all of a sudden a driver behind her just laid on the horn as they came up to a red light. Things spiraled out of control when a white SUV followed her and cut her off, stopping in the middle of the road.
Gets out and walks straight up to my window. So I cracked my window and I said, what is the problem? And he goes, you need to sell your car. This is a Nazi car. You're driving it. You need to sell your car.
I mean, again, this is just crazy behavior. You have a guy, of course, cutting her off, slamming on the brakes in front of her, stopping. He's very lucky, by the way, that she didn't assume this was a threat, because the guy's coming up in a mask, obviously in a threatening manner, and drive around or drive through him in order to get out of this area, because it's only a matter of time before one of these scumbags decide that they're going to pull a weapon on this particular driver, or the driver's going to try to defend themselves. And of course, in a city like Seattle, the driver would have been held accountable for her actions rather than the person who's going on this intimidation tactic. And again, this woman bought the Tesla 2 years ago. You're going to find out that she bought it because she's an environmentalist. She cares about her carbon footprint and all that other left-wing nonsense that caused people to buy these electric cars in the first place. So this isn't somebody who is buying a Tesla in order to support the evil orange man, in order to support Elon Musk. And even if that were the case, it does not justify these kind of actions. But this is how crazy our system is. When the Democrats lose, they act out like this throughout the course of the years. And honestly, their strategy is pretty successful, because they do so many crimes, so many acts of violence, that people just kind of blur it all together as if it's one thing. And then the right has a couple of instances and they get named January 6th or Charlottesville, and that gets stapled to every single politician till the end of time, when in reality, the left's violence is much more frequent and much more destructive.
Lee says she's been driving a Tesla for the last 2 years. She says the man wearing a camouflage jacket and a ski mask attacked her for it.
It's really sad, that this is what's happening to people who honestly, it doesn't affect how I believe or what I believe. Just the car I drive. Being in Seattle, climate's important, our footprint's important. This seemed like the right move for our very busy family.
So of course, she's bought the car for environmental reasons. She's in Seattle. That's the kind of climate that they operate in. And again, this car was so popular among the left wing, among the environmentalists, that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez very notably had a Tesla. Now, of course, she parked it illegally time and time again at her particular building and was never held accountable for that. But in addition to that point of her parking it illegally, she owned this particular vehicle because, again, this was the vehicle of the left wingers. So we have crazy people that are being encouraged by left-wing media attacking people who very likely only own these vehicles because they buy into the climate agenda. They are worried about global warming, and in no way, shape, or form are they supportive of the evil orange man. And even if they were supportive of the evil orange man, this would not be acceptable. But it just goes to show you how powerful the left-wing media's propaganda arm is, because as soon as they said electric car man bad, space man bad, all of these different people came out of the woodwork in order to target regular, ordinary individuals. Now, a lot of people will talk about Tim Walz saying that he's rooting for the stock of Tesla to go down. Obviously, that is not a good look.
Saying on my phone, I don't know, some of you know this on the iPhone, they've got that little stock app. I added Tesla to it to give me a little boost during the day. 225 and dropping. So, and if you own one, we're not blaming you. You can You can take dental floss and pull the Tesla thing off, you know, and take out, just telling you.
Especially when Minnesota's pension fund, which Tim Walz is the governor of Minnesota, ends up owning something like 1.6 million shares of Tesla. So them tanking that particular stock has negative impacts to the public sector workers that supposedly they're extra concerned about. But again, it's unacceptable regardless. You can root against the company all you want. I don't really care about that. But when you escalate to the point where you're encouraging violence or committing violence against people, we have to say enough is enough. Again, when somebody gets killed for driving a Tesla or working at a Tesla dealership, at that point in time, do you think that people will be able to say it's enough? No, they'll double down on this. They'll say, oh, well, no big deal. January 6th, where were you January 6th? Oh my God, it's fine. Honestly, a lot of people will encourage this because if people start dying because they're driving Teslas, guess what? That's going to make stock price go down, and stock price go down is the only goal that these people have.
So doubtful it's Republicans attacking Tesla dealerships around the country. It's pretty wild, actually. The other night, Donald Trump said these are domestic terrorists. Everybody laughed about it and scoffed at it. That video looks like terrorism to me. I mean, it's obviously an organized, coordinated effort, however people are communicating with each other, to do this to people around the country who chose to buy a Tesla at some point in the past, many of whom I'm sure are Democrats who bought them in the first place, all because their entire political worldview is ruled by their emotions. And that's the American left right now. It is one angry mob after another willing to take things into their own hands, up to and including keying, firebombing, and otherwise vandalizing cars and car dealerships and charging stations. It's outrageous. It is terrorism. People ought to be put in jail and left there for a very long time and be taught a lesson.
There's a great clip where Scott Jennings loses his cool on CNN where somebody tries to both sides this particular issue, and the usually calm Jennings is not having any of it, and he calls her out on her nonsense to her face, and she doesn't have a good response because, of course, this is the strategy that these people always try to do. Anytime a left-winger commits violence, they deny it, they joke about it, they pretend it's not happening, they downplay it, and then when you really press them on it, they say, okay, I condemn violence on all sides. I mean, whatever, tiny baby vandalism that's happening to the Tesla, and January 6th, what about January 6th? And Scott Jennings was not having any of it.
So when they do it to a Tesla dealership, it's really bad. But when they do it to the halls of Congress, we should pardon them. Is that your position?
No, I've never. I don't
are
support,
you okay with the January 6th pardons?
I know you haven't been around for a while, so let me educate you about my position about January the 6th.
I'm so sorry.
Let me educate you.
You don't need to patronize
you don't need to. You don't need to be condescending to me. So let me educate you about my position. You want to attack me? Let me finish. Let me finish.
Let's do this January 6th and then
I'm sorry you're getting emotional.
Yeah, I'm sorry you're a condescending person who hasn't been paying attention to what I do.
Stop, guys.
So here's the issue. I didn't support what happened on January the 6th and was one of the first Republicans to call it out. I don't support the pardons. I have repeatedly, just like my friend Ashley here, said that no violence in our political system is acceptable. But this right here, what's going on with a guy who helps our country, who runs successful companies, who doesn't have to be doing this, and now one of his companies is under systematic terroristic threat and violence all over the country, and people seem to be laughing about it or fine with it, it's outrageous. I've sat at this table and had people say, we should cut Elon Musk from the government totally. He rescued our astronauts today. Is that what we want? The treatment of this guy is outrageous. These people who are doing this need to be found, put in jail, and made an example of. That's my point.
Anyone who commits violence against Tesla or Congress or anyone else should be put in jail, 1,000%. But that should not stifle dissent or opposition from Elon Musk.
Give it a little lip service. Give it a little both sides. Go ahead.
Let's do both sides here. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to say that people are legitimately upset. They're legitimately upset at Elon Musk, and they're doing it on their own, but there is no reason to have violence in the country. But I just wish all of us would support criticism of, or would support punishing people who are violent wherever they are.
Now, look, a couple of people have been arrested so far in relation to these crimes, and in my opinion, the Trump administration, whenever there are federal charges involved, should pursue serious consequences for these individuals because they deserve it. This is ridiculous and absurd, and we have to do something in order to counteract this because I don't want to get to the point where people working at a Tesla dealership are killed because these left-wingers can't control themselves and they can't get over the fact that the evil Orange Man 1. Again, 2 separate shootings into a Tesla dealership, Molotov cocktails being thrown at these vehicles, people being stopped on the road. It's crazy. It's madness. And again, this whole Nazi car thing is objectively nonsense from top to bottom, but the left keeps pushing it. They keep pressing the issue, and I never, ever want to hear them talk about stochastic terrorism ever again, where they say you can't talk about immigration or crime-related immigration because somebody out there will listen to that, they'll hear that, the temperature will be raised, and they might commit violence, and even though we can't directly tie you to it, in reality, you're kind of responsible, therefore we have to censor your free speech. No, I never want to hear that nonsense again, because these people are just encouraging it. They're just saying, go do it, it's funny, it's hilarious, take your revenge on Tesla, and I will ask everybody out there who is in the world, who are hearing these messages from these mainstream media figures, why don't they do it themselves if they're telling you to do it? Why doesn't Kyle Kalinske actually go vandalize a Tesla on his own rather than just encourage people out there in the audience in order to do so? The reason why is because they don't actually buy into the message as much as you radicals out there that are embracing it. They're not willing to risk their freedom. They're not willing to risk their income. They just want to encourage you to do it because they think it's funny to watch you jump off a bridge, and that is probably the most shameful part. Again, it is never acceptable to engage in this kind of behavior, regardless of your political motivation. And by the way, this is one of the reasons why I can't stand the people who are violent on January 6th, because we constantly hear that thrown in our faces every time we call out the repeat ongoing violence of the left wing that occurs in this country, and that's the way that they're going to constantly deflect off of this time and time again. So yeah, real consequences for these particular crimes. You shouldn't be able to do this, but of course, we're probably not going to see that. They'll probably get paid out by all these different various cities, because when you commit crimes, you're the real victim, and that's how our society works. But you know what? That's all I have for you guys today. I want to know what you guys think about this down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the nonsense that is ongoing with Tesla. Till next time.